This is 5 on your side at noon. Focused on you.
And we begin it with breaking news at noon. Just a few moments ago, the Hamas militant group announced it has accepted an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal to halt its 7-month war with Israel. The two nations have been mediating months of talks between Israel and Hamas. Earlier today, Israel ordered Palestinians to begin evacuating the southern Gaza town of Rafah ahead of an Israeli military operation. No comment from Israel on Hamas' announcement. We are in a weather alert today. Morning rains moved out, but more's on the way. Let's take a live look at conditions in downtown St. Louis. Another round of storms expected during the overnight hours. Thanks for being here at noon. I'm Kay Quinn. Our weather pattern keeps bringing what seems like never-ending series of more rainstorms. Meteorologist Jim Castillo here with the Weather First forecast.
Yes, hi Kay. So that ground is saturated. We really need a break, but we're going to get some more storms during the overnight hours tonight between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. But right now we're good. 70 degrees and clouds are out there. Maybe some sunshine peeking through, but really the focus today is the Plain States. So anywhere from Kansas through Oklahoma. And let's go ahead and show you. When you see this purple area, that's the highest you can get for that risk of tornadoes and severe weather. That's around Wichita southward to Oklahoma City. So for us, we've now been included in level 2 out of 5. And that is for the overnight hours. Again, damaging wind gusts, the biggest threat here, and a weak tornado can't be ruled out. But the overnight timing on this is 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. through the entire viewing area. A line of storms is expected to be weakening, but still strong enough to produce those wind gusts and maybe some weak tornadoes in there. So when storms strike after dark or at night, which they will tonight, several ways to get your warnings here. It's weather right here at local TV, Channel 5, or your weather app here, 5 on your side weather app, websites, KSDK will update you, radio, and a weather radio to get your alerts. Much more on several rounds of severe weather coming our way in just a few minutes.
All right, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you, Jim. Also developing today, results of an audit of former St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner. State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick will hold a news conference 1 hour from now. He's been investigating actions made by Gardner during her time in office before she resigned last year. 5 on your side's Christine Byers is here to tell us more about what's led us up to this point. Christine?
That's right, Kay. This audit has actually been underway since June of 2021 during Nicole Galloway's administration. The audit was part of a citywide audit that the Board of Aldermen requested. When Scott Fitzpatrick took over as auditor, he served Kim Gardner with a subpoena for some documents. His office has said previously she hasn't cooperated with all of that subpoena. And on the day that he was preparing to take her to court to have that subpoena completely enforced, she abruptly resigned. That was a year ago, and it was also under mounting pressure from the Attorney General's office, who accused her of neglecting her duties as the city's top prosecutor. Since then, Fitzpatrick said the circuit attorney, Gabe Gore, has cooperated with the investigation, allowing investigators to come inside the office in St. Louis and really dig into those files.
So what types of things has the auditor been looking for, and what happens if there is evidence of wrongdoing?
Sure. So the auditor's office is basically looking for anything to do with their books, sometimes policies, to see if they were followed. And if the auditor finds any evidence of fraud or embezzlement or anything like that, either the Attorney General or possibly even the feds can get involved to prosecute if there's a criminal element here. The auditor cannot issue criminal charges, only prosecutors can.
And would that be included in today's announcement, an FBI investigation? Would that be announced today?
It's possible. Anything's possible. We don't know exactly the specifics of what they're going to be announcing here in an hour, but it's all on the table.
And we know you'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You will be
Yes.
there, and we will be at today's announcement, and we will follow through on this story all throughout the day. You can get updates on KSDK.com, the 5 Plus, and 5 on Your Side app. Look at this scene in East St. Louis. A car crashed into a building at 22nd and State Streets early this morning. Police haven't released any information about the driver or what led to the crash. New details about an incident that left a woman injured in Earth City. Police say Epiphany Dismukes pinned a woman between her car and a gas pump. They say it happened during a fight with two other women Saturday at the station on Ryder Trail South. Dismukes allegedly got into her car and drove right at one of the women. She missed her and hit the second woman, pinning her. The victim suffered serious injuries. Dismukes left the scene, but officers were able to arrest her a short time later. New at noon, Columbia University canceling its university-wide commencement ceremony after weeks of pro-Palestinian and counter-protests on campus. School officials say security concerns are behind the decision. It's one of many schools around the country still dealing with ongoing demonstrations and crackdowns. NBC's Maggie Vespa has more from DePaul University in Chicago.
Tensions here at the University of Chicago escalating again overnight. You might be able to make out the encampment behind me, although we're being kept a ways back by police. But protesters overnight erecting a fence around part of it, saying that talks have now broken down with the university. Over the weekend here in Chicago, we also saw clashes at DePaul University and the Art Institute, which houses an art school, and then, of course, on campuses nationwide, namely at the University of Virginia and the University of Southern California. And, of course, now this surge in campus protests is colliding with commencement season. We saw protesters at the University of Michigan's main graduation ceremony, and then at Northeastern in Boston. On Saturday, a protester apparently covered in fake blood stormed the stage before being led away by security. All of this has at least one more school scrapping commencement altogether.
We now go to NBC News for a special report on the Israel-Hamas war.
Lester Holt.
Good day, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news from the Middle East. Hamas just announced it tentatively accepted a ceasefire proposal brokered by Egypt and Qatar to pause the fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Israel still has yet to respond, but right now, as many as 5 American hostages are still being held captive inside the enclave. It's unclear how many hostages there are in total who are alive. It all comes as Israel threatens to launch a major operation on Rafah, the southernmost city in Gaza, where more than 1 million Palestinians are sheltering after more than 7 months of war. Let's go straight to our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel. Richard, what do we know about this proposal and who has signed on to it?
So there is already a visible response in Gaza. People are on the streets. They are singing. They are dancing. They believe that this is the start of a ceasefire, that it's the start of a truce. And we don't know exactly the terms, but we heard from Hamas. Hamas issued an official statement from Ismail Haniyeh that he had accepted a deal, that had been put forward by the Egyptians, put forward by the Qataris, endorsed by the United States. And according to European diplomats, that deal includes the release of 33 hostages in exchange for a 40-day truce. It would be a multi-stage deal that, if successful, if these 33 hostages are released, if there are no issues, that the 40-day truce holds, that there would be other hostage releases to follow that. But that is the framework of the deal that we understand. We are still awaiting a response from the Israeli government to see if they are going to accept it. And this came, Lester, as you were saying, right at the 11th hour. There had been efforts for the last week, intense efforts to achieve this deal. Those talks stalled over the weekend. And then this morning, it looked like Israel was going to go ahead with a long-threatened advance on the city of Rafah. Israel dropped leaflets on Rafah. It ordered about 100,000 people to evacuate, saying that military operations were imminent. And Israel had already begun to bomb parts of Rafah. And as that bombing campaign was intensifying, we see this statement from Hamas agreeing to the terms of this multi-stage deal. Now we are waiting for a response from the Israeli government. According to the Israeli government, there are 128 hostages kidnapped on October 7th by Hamas in Gaza. They include 109 men, 19 women, and according to the Israeli government, 35 of those hostages are believed to be no longer alive, leaving 93 hostages believed to be still living.
All right, Richard, I'll ask you to stand by. Let me bring in our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, when we say Hamas has agreed, is the understanding that is both wings or the various wings of Hamas?
So far, this is a statement from Hania, who is the political wing of Hamas operating in Doha, Qatar, where Bill Burns, our CIA director, and his counterparts have been negotiating with a lot of pressure from Qatar and Egypt to try to get this done. Arab leaders telling me when I was traveling with Secretary Blinken last week in the Middle East, Arab leaders saying it's now or never. If this deal does not go through, they expected that Israel would go into Rafah and that the civilian casualties and the horror of that would make another ceasefire deal simply impossible. There hasn't been one since November, in fact, as you know, and these talks have gone on endlessly. The problem is that we have not yet heard from Yahya Sinwar. He is the militant, he is the mastermind, the believed mastermind of October 7th, of the massacre. And all sides, military, the intelligence, all believe that he is underground inside Gaza, probably in Rafah, but they don't know from how he moves in that complex of tunnels. So he has not been heard from. The question is Hania speaking for him or only speaking for himself? And that has to be clarified. Israel is going to want to get clarification about that. Was Israel about to go into Rafah despite U.S. objections? The Prime Minister speaking to President Biden just about an hour or so ago. That's not clear. We know that Mr. Biden again reiterated his objections to them going into Rafah. I've been told by officials in the U.S. that they do not feel that they have either an adequate military plan, and even more urgently, they do not have a plan to relocate the 1.4 million people there, 1.2 million of whom are displaced people. But that relocation began today with the leaflets from Israeli planes, as well as warnings to begin to move out. So again, they were being told that they could move. They needed to move to a safe zone. People who really don't have a way of moving very easily. Many people living in tents, having basically no shelter, and a desperate situation without food, water, and fuel or cell phones.
Andrea, you talked a moment about U.S. pressure, international pressure on Netanyahu. What kind of pressure has he been facing internally to get a deal done with Hamas and begin getting hostages home?
Lester, that's such a critical question because within the last couple of weeks, the importance of getting the hostages out has taken primary political public opinion, let's say, has moved importantly from getting Hamas out, defeating those last 4 battalions, to getting the hostages back. And I am told that there are still hostages alive inside Rafah.
All right, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, thank you. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com, and a full wrap-up when I see you for NBC Nightly News. I'm Lester Holt in New York. Good day, everyone.